Hello, I just made a short about who is the next major character to come upon the scene biblically. And so I want to make a longer video on that because it's hard to get all that information into, a short video. So as I said in the other video, the this war in Iran is a major deal biblically because uh, this basically happened a long time ago as well, and it was prophetic in the book of Daniel as a type of what's going to happen in the end. And we see that in Daniel chapter 8. It talks about a ram with two horns and a he goat that smashes him. And back then, the ram with two horns was Iran. It was the Medo-Persian Empire, which would modern day be Iran, and the goat was Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great smashed Iran. And what happened after that was the his empire, Alexander the Great's empire, divided into four uh, separate kingdoms, and Antiochus came from one of those kingdoms. I believe it was the Ptolemy. Uh, it was either the Seleucid or the Ptolemy kingdom, but it was one of those. Either way, Antiochus came from that, and basically he's the one that desecrated the temple. And if you read on in the book of Daniel, it took 2,300 days for the Maccabees to rededicate it. And basically a lot of the prophecy from Daniel stems from that whole situation. What happened with Alexander the Great and Iran and what came from that. And so it was a type of what's going to happen in the future, and not just some, random thing in the future. It was a type of what's going to be the end. And when I say the end, I mean what happens before the Messiah comes back, the last thing before the Messiah returns. So then we'll basically just go on to this final thing, because biblically, just in case anybody thinks, oh, Iran might, make it through this or something. No, they're not going to make it through it. They're going to be trampled, and they're not going to make it through it. And that's just biblical. But what's going to form from that is going to be um, the final kingdom. And in Daniel chapter 7, it's called the fourth beast. We see it even in the New Testament. It's 7 heads, 10 horns. The 10 horns, it says in chapter 7, verse 24, the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And so the next thing that you're going to see once this whole Iran thing is done, which is probably going to be in the very near future, is there's going to be a 10 king confederation. And that's going to be this final kingdom, and it's going to devour the entire earth. And then it goes on to say in verse 24 of chapter 7, another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and shall subdue 3 kings. Well, this guy is going to be the future Antiochus type. He's going to be the little horn, which is, you could call him a false messiah. You could call him the devil incarnate. He's going to be he's going to look like a lamb, but he's a wolf. He's not he's not a lamb. In fact, the book of Revelation calls him he's really the first seal, the rider on the white horse. He's going to appear to be, like I said, a lamb, but it's going to be a final 7 year period that it's in. And in the middle of that, at 3.5 years, he is going to show his true colors. But what's his character like? Well, we see it in verse 25. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and he shall wear out the saints of the Most High. So he's going to hate Jews. He's going to hate the Bible. He's going to hate anybody who believes the Bible. And that's why the world's going to love him, because let's face it, the world is already like that, for the most part. They don't anything but the Bible, right? Anything but the Bible. I mean, you could be anything goes, any religion goes, but if it's Jews and Christians, you know, that's a no-go for the world. So this guy's going to basically be a messiah to them. I mean, that's it. It just fits, right? He's going to be just a perfect segue to the end. I mean, the entire world is gonna love him. And he's, like I said, speak great words against the Most High, wear out the saints of the Most High. He's going to think to change times and laws. They shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and the dividing of time. That's the last 3.5 years. Um, so the first 3.5, he's basically building up his confederacy and all that. Uh, like I said, there's going to be 10 kings, but he's going to subdue 3 of them. So he's probably like assuming power in that first 3.5 years of that last 7 years. And by the last 3.5 years, the they're going to be given into his hand for that time, times, and dividing that last 3.5 years. The entire world is. Um, so he's going to be a blasphemer. He's going to speak great words against the Most High, and he's going to wear out the saints of the Most High. So he's going to just wage a relentless war against the people who believe in the God of the Bible, and he's going to blaspheme the God of the Bible. And that makes you question, well, is he going to be a religious guy at all? I don't think he's going to be a religious guy at all, because if you go on to read in Second Thessalonians, and then even that's in the Old Testament. Now if we read the New Testament, chapter 2 of Second Thessalonians, verse 4, or even let's start at verse 3. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. That's this little horn guy, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped. So that's any God. He opposes and exalts himself. He opposes, so we'll start there, who opposes himself above all that is called God. So is he going to be a Muslim, a Buddhist? Not according to this. He opposes himself above all that is called God or worshipped. And he exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped. So this guy's going to be a God hater. There's only one true God, it's the God of the Bible, but this guy's going to be completely non-religious. He's going to, and I think we see why, and when it says next, it says, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. You can't have other gods when this guy is going to proclaim himself to be God. That's his end game. So he's going to manage to build up a military. Uh, this is all going to happen. This is all going to happen in the vacuum of this uh, Iran war, which will probably lead to the end of Islam too, I would imagine. And the church is going to be raptured right before the 7 year period. So all the Christians are gone. Islam's going to be broken up. You know, they're gonna at least at the minimum be questioning Islam, But by the time this guy gets going, they're going to know at that point, like, well, Islam isn't true because this guy's going to have world dominant power. And trust me, there's not going to be mosque and Buddhist temples and this guy's going to have a 10 king confederation, and it's all going to be destroyed, and you're either going to worship him or you're done. I mean, that's how this goes. So this guy, the entire world is given into his hand for 3.5 years, and so that's some of his character. He's going to be opposing and exalting himself above all that's called God or worshipped. He's going to have world power, and he's going to proclaim himself to be God. And he's going to have, like I said, he's going to have more power than anybody in the world's ever had. So, yeah, he's called the little horn. He's called a lot of things in the scripture, but you see different little pieces of information about him throughout the scriptures. But that's what's coming. In the vacuum of this war, this is not an insignificant thing. That's just, life as normal is coming afterwards. That's not the situation. This is the this is what brings about the very end, the time right before the Messiah returns. And it's not all doom and gloom, because what happens is the Messiah returns and crushes this guy with, no problem, and all that's with him. So believe in the Messiah today, Jesus, and you won't have to deal with this guy. But if you don't, and you get stuck in this 7-year situation, um, just know that his power is going to end, and the Messiah is going to be the one who's king over the entire world. But definitely don't worship this guy or take his mark if you get stuck in this tribulation, because eventually people are going to be left with a decision. You either die or you worship him. And if you do, you forfeit any chance at salvation. You're not you can never be saved if you worship him, because he's going to be giving some type of mark that you have to take a mark to pledge allegiance to him. And something about that mark is like, it basically, it messes with your DNA or something. I don't really know. Scripture isn't real clear on it, but it does something with your DNA, to the point that you can no longer, you just can't be saved anymore after that. And I almost think that it makes you immortal. It makes you to the point that you can't die, because if you look in the book of Revelation, it's like there's judgment coming on the people that take his mark, but they still can't die. Like, they're having severe uh, punishment put on them, but they're unable to die. So it's something like that, but I can't be dogmatic and specific about what it is, but it's something like that. But that is going to be what's coming in the vacuum of this war, and it's probably in the very near future. So just wanted to make a short video on that so that the information's out there. And that's my interpretation and opinion of the scripture. I'm pretty sure it's biblical, because that's what it plainly says in multiple spots in the Bible. So thank you for watching, and have a good day.